Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Future of Work podcast. I'm Ryan Kohler. And look, if you've been listening to this show, you know I'm obsessed with this intersection of like AI, creativity, and how we're all supposed to navigate this crazy, uncertain world we're living in right now. Today's guest is going to blow your mind, and I mean that. So get this. I'm talking to Caroline Brookfield, who's a veterinarian from Calgary. Yeah, you heard that right, a vet. But here's the thing. She's also speaking at HR conferences about creativity and ambiguity tolerance. And before you go, what the hell does a vet know about HR? That's exactly the point. See, Caroline figured out something that most of us are missing. She discovered that creativity isn't about being artistic. It's about being comfortable stepping into the unknown. And right now, with AI changing everything faster than we can keep up, that ability to deal with ambiguity, that's literally the skill that's going to determine who thrives and who gets left behind. We're going to dive into why most of us think we're not creative. Spoiler alert, it happened in like second grade. How creativity is basically boot camp for handling uncertainty. And this fascinating research showing that only 10% of people have high tolerance for ambiguity. Plus, Caroline's got this assessment tool that measures 9 different dimensions of how you handle change, and I'm definitely taking that thing after this conversation. So whether you're a leader trying to build a team that can adapt, or you're just someone who's tired of feeling anxious every time something new gets thrown at you, this conversation is going to give you some real tools to work with. All right, let's jump into it. Here's my conversation with Caroline Brookfield. So Caroline, how do you end up speaking at SHRM as like a ex-veterinarian? Like,
I'm not ex, I'm still a veterinarian. I still work as a veterinarian.
oh, great. So that's even weirder. Like, so you're talking about adaptability,
Yeah.
right? And clearly have a book out about like, yeah, that kind of adaptability from a creativity standpoint. And you're a veterinarian. Like, how does that perfect storm end you up at SHRM?
Well, without going too deep into the weeds, so I'd always wanted to be a vet. I loved animals, and I was like super type A volunteer. I was freaking out when I was 14 years old because I didn't have any vet experience for my application. So that was it for me. And then I hit high school, and I started really loving improv and performance and photography. And I was like, wait, I'm not creative. I don't. Why do I like this stuff? And I kind of felt like I had to pick art or science. And so I picked obviously the science, went on to be a vet, and that's been a great career for like 28 years. But I noticed that like I would always feel like I was looking for something in the job. Like there was always something kind of missing. And then I noticed that, and then I had a job with Purina, Nestle Purina, where I was technical services. And I'd say like 80% of my job was speaking. And I was like, I really like this. And everybody else apparently hates it. So maybe I should do that. It's kind of like that following, some breadcrumbs.
Mhm.
But then I was like, what am I going to speak about? I could speak about vet topics. There's a, whole creative, messy process in there. And I had noticed that when I was happiest in my roles, it was because I was problem solving and I was doing new things and I was thinking of new ways to do my job in any way, whether it was like bandaging, a sparrow's wing, or whether it was like reaching out to clients, in the Purina organization, or we're working with a nonprofit with no budget. And so I was like, there's something here about creativity as far as problem solving goes. And then I went on this deep dive into the research, and I was like, man, this is amazing. People need to know about how important creativity is, because we tend to dismiss it as frivolous or artistic. And I think that limits us in our ability to build our creativity, because a lot of us say, oh, I'm not creative because I can't draw. And so then that mindset limits us into our capacity for thinking of new ways to work and live, and how to live through ambiguity and change and find a new direction when we need to.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I
that's
think
kind
that's
of
an
a long story long.
interesting. No, that's great. And I think that's an interesting topic just to start into this. Like, I'm not creative. Like,
Mhm.
like I believe we're all inherently like gifted with these different, abilities, capabilities, like things that we could evolve, talents. I
Mhm.
don't know that creatives somehow were birthed more creative than those who aren't creative. I think it was probably a mix of um, building the skill set, or maybe even embracing that side of them
Mhm.
and permission and approval of doing it. And I think where a lot of us go wrong, like I know for me, so like it's interesting. I was just my conversation yesterday with somebody else at SHRM, where they're talking about this like building this creative project as a team that kind of builds teamship. Um, is this like in second and third grade, suddenly your drawings go from I turned it in, good job, to there's a grade or a competition around who did the best. And
Mhm.
in math, it's very safe. I know I'm smarter. So I know there's a right answer. I
Mhm.
got the right answer, therefore I win. If I don't get the right answer, I know I didn't.
Mhm.
Whereas in third and fourth grade, when we start like grading artwork, we start applying a scoring system to an expression
Yeah.
of ourselves that can instantly say, well, I guess I'm bad at this because my score wasn't right.
Mhm.
Or I guess I'm bad at it because when I compare mine to somebody else's, it's wrong. It doesn't conform. It's not
Mhm.
right. And I think that sets the tone for a lot of people to say, I'm not creative because of some comparison, of some score, of some competition they lost, without understanding that like creativity is like both in the eyes of the creator and the beholder, and there is not a context like or a global grading system for creativity, right?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing about that too is, you hit the nail on the head. Grade 2, 3 is when we find out we're not creative, right? And I think part of it is we try something and think that we're going to be as good as our colleague who has been doing it for 3 years, right? And practicing 3 hours a night because they're passionate about it. So I think part of it is passion because it is a skill, but it's also kind of to your point about math, being right or wrong. And I would add to that that it's not personal. So if you're wrong at math, okay, well, I was wrong at math. But if you're wrong at art, oh, now you're wrong, right? So I feel like there's also that layer of realizing that other people have an opinion about your expression and the way that you express yourself.
Oh, 100%. I think that math is much more in the head and art's probably much more in the heart, like that different expression of me
Hmm.
versus a figuring out of an external thing. Oh yeah, 100%. And I think but yeah, that is also this very like it's math or it's art. And in the
Right.
middle is say like the iPhone. It's not art, it's not math. It is a you follow Steve Jobs stuff where he's like
Hmm.
this intersection of like technology and artist creation and like usability and psychology. You look at great products or great solutions, whether it's in software or wherever, you're going to see this intersection in between like psychology, art, like an actual mathematical thing and technology is going to intersect here. But we highlight that it's some great programmer, some great
Yeah.
technologist, right? We
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
really talk about like the rounded corners and the elegance of a keyboard that you can use your thumbs with.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's that intersection. I love that you're calling it art and not creativity because under that umbrella, all of those things are creative. Math can be creative, the way you approach math, the way you design your, equations or whatever the case, that's all creativity. And art is one part of it. But I think we kind of latch on to this idea that creativity has to be artistic or some visual or performance kind of representation of that. But all of those things are creative. The engineers at Apple who probably couldn't draw a stick figure are just as creative as the people who designed, that interface and the rounded corners. They're just creative in a different way.
Yeah, I think our world though today is looking for mm, safety, and safety
Hmm.
comes from predictability, and predictability sounds like a spreadsheet. There's a
Yeah.
great book on this. I think it's the oh gosh, it's talking about alchemy, the potential of ideas, like the opposite of a good idea is a good idea, right? So there's this
Oh, yeah.
amazing book on this, and it basically is like we came from a world that had a small number of mathematicians, engineers, economists, and a high number of mystic, like that kind of heart focused, like creativity kind of folks. And
Yeah.
we've skewed to a large group of engineers, economists, accountants, like very
Hmm.
structured thinkers, with a small number of like wizards, right? The ones because it's so hard to replicate and explain something that appears to be unexplainable. And
Hmm.
yet, time and time again, like the mix of those is what wins, but it's too hard to explain. Like Steve Jobs would say, you can't you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you
Yeah.
can
I
connect
love
them
it.
looking back. Makes
I love that
logical
quote.
sense when we get there. It made no sense going forward.
Hmm.
And I
And
think
I would
that's where
argue,
we're at. Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I would argue that those people you're talking about, the engineers and the spreadsheet people, they all have the capacity to be creative in a different way, but because they're skewed so hard into that area, they don't express it. They feel like they can't express it. They're defined by an identity of what an accountant or what a leader or what an HR person looks like. And I think all of us have this feeling like I did of like, there's something missing. And I think a lot of that is our personal expression and bringing our unique background, culture, skills, experiences, relationships to work so that we can be more than just that, spreadsheet typer that is so rigidly thinking. So I think there's always a
100%.
little bit of room for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in their shadow and it stays in their shadow because of conformity and fitting in. We're
Right.
we're seeking to belong to a tribe, and that tribe could be the tribe of accountants. And
Yes.
therefore, inside of that tribe of accountants, there becomes limitations to
Yeah.
how we show up and act and how we do things in order to
conform to who, the status quo in order to, become who we look up to
Hmm.
in order, and even hyped on us in order to deal with not pushing back every time somebody goes, oh, you're an accountant, therefore that means
Right.
X, Y, or Z about you. Like I get it all the time. So I actually studied accounting in college and I have an accounting
Oh,
degree
yeah.
and then switched over to the MBA and then quit my job and went into web marketing and started building tech companies. And anybody who knows me very well is like, I don't bring up that I'm an accountant
Hmm.
or that that was my past. And I've had 3 or 4 accounting jobs because I'm great at it. It doesn't mean I loved it. I
Right.
was just good at it from a mathematical standpoint.
Hmm.
But yeah, so much of my time was spent for a long time going, okay, I'm not going to tell people I studied accounting or that I had accounting jobs because they instantly typecast me as going,
Yeah.
well, you can't be building a software company then. And I don't understand why you're applying for a marketing job
Hmm.
because you have a degree in accounting, so therefore you're an accountant. Or I'll get all the time where it's like, oh, you know what? You would love to talk to Joe. You and him are similar because you're both accountants. And it's like, I don't know if you've met me and met Joe, but if you did, you'd realize we aren't the same.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it,
I
it
mean, we have this natural bias of putting people into boxes, and there's research behind this. Actually, a great book, speaking of books, is I think it's called Creative Change by Jennifer Mueller, and she talks about the bias. So if an accountant comes to you as a CEO or a leader and says, "Hey, I have a great idea how we can engage our staff with this fun team building experience," because they're in a place that that you're making an assumption about them, that idea is actually scored differently than if someone who's like a marketing person comes to you. So the ideas can be the same, but we judge decisions based on who gives us, or judge ideas based on who gives us those ideas. And you're right, we make these assumptions about people based on who they are. And I get it all the time as a vet. I'm like, well, you're a vet. Why are you speaking about creativity and ambiguity? It makes no sense. And
Mhm.
what comes out in the research is that ambiguity is very threatening and uncertainty is threatening. So it's kind of meta, because for me as a speaker, I'm talking to people with the same reaction you had. They're like, why are you doing that? What? So it feels very ambiguous to people, which I know makes them feel anxious, and it creates a little bit of a threat response, which makes it much harder for me to sell them my message on how to lean into ambiguity. So it's kind of this meta circle of, trying to navigate that.
Oh, 100%. And I think that it's, if you're listening to this and you go, oh, this is me, I'm tired of this always happens. There are a couple ways to solve for it. Like number one, like um you need to get beyond defending. Like don't get tired of defending it and saying, no, 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 I am this, but I'm also these other things. Like don't like feel offended by it. Like you're just gonna have to deal with that, right? You need to get good at it. And then take it to the next level of getting even better at it. Like lead with it, make a joke about it, explain the why, lead it in. And for me, a lot of times I like to switch from like knowledge and skill to passion
Mm-hmm.
because most people inherently, once they get it, where they're like, okay, look, there's a lot of people that are skilled that are not passionate, and that caps where what change they can make. And there's a lot of people who are passionate and not skilled, and they make more money, sales, they make more impact on a lot of things because passion, I'll take passion over skill versus skill with no passion. And so for a lot of times for me, I try to like amplify that. That's like, look, I just care more about this than anybody else. And my caring means that it doesn't matter where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
We know where we're going. I care about it. But yeah, I think there's that and building that into more of a persona to
Mm-hmm.
own
Yeah.
so that you're not typecast. Like short term is uncertain and scary.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to feel both like judgment from the outside of being capped and judgment from your tribe trying to
Mm-hmm.
pull you back.
Right.
But once you get to that point where you're like, no, 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 I'm a tribe of one. I'm going to be this unique person. You'll find you start attracting more unique people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're attracted to it. So you're going to SHRM to talk about this ambiguity and change, which has
Mm-hmm.
got to be like I would say one of the most important topics, at least for the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you like jump into that? So you've got this like kind of like a book about like
Yeah.
kind of reluctant creativity, and now we're talking about ambiguity and change. So kind of like give us the unpack on that. Like what is the like core like why does this matter?
Yeah, so the link between them is going, doing the research on creativity. What kept coming up was this ambiguity, and I came across some research from the University of Queensland about tolerance of ambiguity, which is how confident are you during change. There's 9 dimensions of it. It's pretty complex, but at the end of the day, it's like, do you freak out when you don't know what's happening or not? And what I found most interesting was that creativity is the single factor that influences all 9 dimensions of tolerance of ambiguity. So then I was fascinated by this intersection of creativity and ambiguity, and what does it mean to be more confident in change, and how can we increase our tolerance of ambiguity so that as the change increases and the intensity increases, we can challenge it with more calmness and more optimism. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about at SHRM, is this idea of the 2 pillars that I talk about for building tolerance of ambiguity are using your creativity. It doesn't have to be artistic, because anything you do that's creative is stepping into ambiguity. So if I'm painting a painting of a tree, I don't know what it's going to look like until I do it. If I am building a pivot table in Excel to make something more efficient, I don't know exactly how that's going to work until I've done it, right? So this practice of creating something is stepping into the unknown and being okay with not knowing how it's going to work out, because with smartphones and information at our fingertips, we're losing that ability to be comfortable when we don't know the answer, and the ambiguity is increasing. So I talk about creativity as a main pillar to building this strength to handle ambiguity. And then the other pillar is mindfulness, because mindfulness is important because of awareness. We're not aware of most of the we're aware of much of the change and ambiguity, but a lot of it's coming at us unconsciously. And especially with leaders, we react to status quo decisions. We do what we've always done. When we're faced with uncertainty and ambiguity, we default. It's just a human evolutionary adaptation to what's always won. But 2 million years ago, what we used to do actually probably did work, but now it's not the case. So it matters because we have so much change, so much ambiguity. It's unprecedented. I mean, I always tell a story about like back when we were kind of evolving these instincts that are now pretty much outdated. It took 2.4 million years from the time we invented fire to how we figured out how to cook with it. Like 2.4 million years to just figure out how to cook with fire. Like when you look at how things are changing with technology and AI, and it's just unfathomable for the pace of things to change. So I hope that answered your question. I tend to go off on tangents because I also have ADHD.
100%. No, and I think there's a couple, like going back to that, like those 2 core important points of like, look, and if you take the create something and mindfulness and you want to restate it in other ways, like mindfulness of, are you looking back, meaning let's just do it the default way and let's do it almost unconsciously, or are you being conscious? Hey, things are becoming different, therefore I'm taking a different path on purpose. I think in most organizations, we are unconsciously doing what we've always done.
Right.
Like, because nobody could show up in a meeting and be like, I think we should do right here, do what we've always done.
No.
They don't say it out loud, but what they do say is, let's continue with this approach until it breaks or it's proven wrong or whatever, which is effectively saying don't try anything new.
Right.
But unconsciously, and everybody accepts it as safe. Well, we're not going to get fired generally for doing the proven thing we've always done.
Exactly. 100%.
Right? And the creative side, I think, is kind of this like get active. Like creativity is an active. I'm going to create something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to build something. Like I'm not, very few people are like, yeah, I was being creative. I was sitting there being worried. I was having a conversation about how AI might kill the whole world. That's not creative. Talking about it, worrying about it is not an act of creation.
Correct. That's imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love what you said, because it comes to mind a book, I don't know if you've heard of it or read it, by Danny Kahneman, called Thinking Fast and Slow. And he talks about the fast and slow thinking. And we think we're using our slow, deliberate thinking brain, but most of the time we're just doing a quick thinking decision. And then we're using that slow thinking to rationalize the quick decision we made. So it's just what you talked about with people, they don't know they're defaulting to old solutions. They just convince themselves that it's new, but it's still safe.
Right. So as you take this, there's kind of, I guess, a couple different sides to this, right? You have the organization standpoint. How does an organization like drive their team to deal with the ambiguity? Us startup people, we naturally we jump off we jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. And a lot of startups, when they struggle with hiring, has to do with you're choosing people who come from a much more stable environment. You're not recognizing that Fortune 500 VP of sales is not going to deal well with the ambiguity and chaos of, we don't know, the world is burning around us, pick the most important fire to put out, and just don't notice all the rest of it burning. Like, it's good.
And
right?
be okay with not knowing that there's a prescription for how to follow that fire, to put that one fire out, that you're gonna have to figure it out as you go. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's just not like it's a skill set that is learned by doing. It's
Hmm.
not learned by like reading about it. It's not learned by having experience in it because A, at some point you had to do it the first time,
Hmm.
and probably you're more creatives, you're less risk averse, or out there going, "Hey, I actually like chaos. I enjoy creating from scratch. I'm
Yeah.
glad the problem wasn't well defined.
Hmm.
I'm glad that my boss didn't give me proper instructions." So from an org, we have that like how do you change that methodology from a
Hmm.
leadership and then even on the individual employees? Because I think for the first time in my entire career, we've reached a point with AI where nobody really knows. Like they don't know what the future looks like. Your boss doesn't know. Your corporation doesn't know. The economists don't know. Even the AI companies don't know what the future looks like in not in decades, like literally in 5 years. We just don't know what it looks like. And your leaders don't actually have any experience using the technology that is going to be a major part of our future.
Hmm.
And so I think there's, I mean, honestly, across the board from a business standpoint, so much ambiguity right now, and nobody really knows what to do next. Is that kind of what you're seeing as you're out kind of engaging with people?
Yeah, and I think what I'm seeing just from my individual conversations is that the large amount of stress and burnout it's causing. I think that, what I find that interesting is this kind of paradox. So when you look at role ambiguity, which people don't know what the role is, which because the role's always changing and the needs and adaptation, but role ambiguity is extremely stressful. It's one of the biggest drivers of burnout. So that's on one hand, people are stressed with the ambiguity. They don't know what they're supposed to do and they don't know how the future is going to go. So I see it in the well-being and burnout.
Mhm.
But then what I find as a paradox is that yet these same places that don't give clear directives on what your role is and what we're trying to do for the company are now micromanaging with these SOP processes and like detailed flow trees of how to handle a thing. So you're actually giving a massive amount of ambiguity that's unnecessary, really. You can tell people what their job is and what they're trying to achieve, and then they're reducing the ambiguity at the level that people need to lean into it so that they know they can overcome these small challenges and they can lean into getting something done in a way that might be different than somebody else. So I think that what I'm seeing from an individual standpoint that I'm speaking to is the great amount of anxiety and burnout and just exhaustion from a constant ambiguity.
Oh, yeah, you can't have that much uncertain future. The hype that the AI people think they're giving, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, the world's going to be so much better that you won't have a job, right? Like SDRs are dead, sales is dead, accountants are dead. We don't need any of you anymore. That marketing material that AI is pushing right now, for the most part, is not helpful. It
Mhm.
literally is building up resistance to the adoption of the very tools they want adopted. Like, and it's one part conscious, but a heavy part of subconscious, and we see it in how it's applied. The average person will take, and you can instantly tell where they're at on the whether you want to mix this creativity spectrum of do they approach, oh my gosh, I'm curious about this,
Yeah.
which is a very abundant mindset.
Mhm.
Curiosity is abundance. Hey, what could this do? Versus a fear or scarcity mindset of, oh no,
Yeah.
this is going to get me. And you can see it with what they apply it to. So when a human sees AI, they tend to apply it to what they're good at so that
Mhm.
it will fail and so that they will feel like they're still relevant. So an
Like a
accountant applies,
self-fulfilling prophecy, you mean? Like it's
oh
kind of
yeah,
like they set it up to fail because it confirms their belief.
100%.
Yeah.
If we
Okay.
set it
Cool.
up to fail, and therefore we also don't have a reason to then go, I wonder if I can make it better because I don't want it to be better because it becoming competent means that I don't have a space. The ones that are more abundant with it go, oh my gosh, how can I use this
Mhm.
to accomplish my job? And can I apply it to stuff I hate? Oh my gosh, if I'm an accountant and I do accounting for companies and I go, oh, is this going to be able to do the debits and credits? No, it can't. You see, I'm still relevant. If I instead
Yeah.
go, I hate communicating about accounting to non accountants. Oh, I wonder if this will help me describe our financial statements to the sales team.
Hmm.
Hey, that's
Hmm.
something it could do really well. And doing that would be a win for me when I did it in and that one thing really instantly shows like you show me what you're trying to do with it, I'll show you where your brain's at. Of are you trying to create something? And the last part is that I like to view it in steps of like we as humans have become users of technology but AI especially gives us the ability to create tools with it of our own. It's a
Mhm.
creative act when you go from I'm throwing a prompt at it to I'm building a GBT or a
Mhm.
project. And you take it to the third step of I'm creating for other users, for
Mhm.
other, and it instantly unlocks in a random accountant or a receptionist or a barista, going from I'm a consumer to I'm a creator to
Right.
I'm an inventor for other people.
Mhm.
And everybody can make that path. Like we're all inherently able to and have the same tools for free effectively to do it. But mentally, we have to want to do that.
Well, and that you have to lean in, like you said, to the curiosity, and you have to be willing to be wrong. And so you get a career accountant who's been good at their job for 30 years. It's really hard to suck at something. So it's really hard to lean into like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with AI, but I'm just going to start doing things and see what happens. And that's a really uncomfortable place for people who have developed expertise because it makes them feel like they don't know what they're doing, which is part of creativity and it's part of curiosity and it's learning and experimenting. And I think that that might be, through our conversation, what is one of the more limiting things, whether it's AI or creativity, it's this lack of interest in experimenting.
Well, you take that thread you just pulled and pull it one step farther. The 20-year accountant like feels competent.
Yep.
They've been out of the new things for a long time.
Mhm.
You move that up a step and go the leader who has 20 people reporting to them. The idea that they would be experimenting with something they don't understand and they don't know. We built America on your boss being right even when he's wrong. He still feels like he's right and you still respect him like he's right. He's the boss.
Mhm.
And so you give your boss ChatGPT and say, "Hey, boss, you're telling us we should embrace AI. Show me your ChatGPT." Oh, you don't even use it?
Right.
Like it is
Because
empty soup mentality big time right now.
Well, and because they are being a leader and they're acting like a leader that they think they're supposed to be looking like an accountant, or to your point about, you're an accountant, you must love this other accountant. So they're acting like a leader, even though it's not necessarily effective. They're just playing a role. Like I think we're all playing roles instead of really just be willing to lean into who we are as human beings and what makes us different and bring those skills to apply to where we have this expertise.
So what are some of the core things leaders can do to open that up? Because I would imagine if you want to have a culture that deals well with ambiguity or
Mhm.
change or approaches it from a creative mindset, that generally has to come from the top. Like the leader's got to step in and create the playground for that to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's kind of two main things I would say, obviously biased from my topic, but one is to create tolerance of ambiguity in every person in your organization. And you can do that in a number of ways. There's a whole bunch of ways depending on what individual dimension you're trying to work on, but creativity is the number one. So that, creativity is an easy way to build tolerance of ambiguity, and it also builds a creative culture. It requires psychological safety. So one of my favorite publications about this was Gallup, that did a study around creative organizations. And they found that there were three simple criteria. If the organization had those criteria, they were considered a creative organization. It was time to be creative, expectation to be creative, and freedom to take risks. Like the easiest, hardest things ever. But if
Right.
those three things are present in an organization, it empowered 70% of employees to innovate versus 20%. So we've got people solving problems on their own. We've got people building their creative problem solving to solve small little problems. Like maybe it's just shaving, a couple of millimeters off some packaging to save tons in transport costs or
Mhm.
something like that. And then by allowing them to create, you're actually giving them the tools to build their tolerance of ambiguity. So it kind of becomes this tree of, if you start with people having the freedom to take risks and asking them to make creative choices, you'll start having an organization that's more resilient to change, and you'll keep them, because when people feel like they're using their creativity at work, they're half as likely to be looking for another job.
Oh, 100%. And I think AI is going to make that even worse. I think that the people who are great with AI are going to leave the organizations where leaders don't understand it and where it's not rewarded. I mean, if you think about it from the very outset, like if I'm an accountant and I get paid 50 bucks an hour, right, to do my job 40 hours a week, and I figure out a way to use AI to cut my work in half, all you're going to do is give me more work to do and pay me the same money. I
Yeah.
do not have a vested interest
Yeah.
in becoming more efficient. I don't. Now, if I'm a sales rep, if I become more creative, I close more deals, I make more money per hour. Therefore, sales reps have a vested interest. And entrepreneurs like me, have a vested interest in me becoming more efficient and effective. And I, as a leader, have a vested interest in it becoming better. But if I don't recognize that my employees don't, this
Mm-hmm.
talk of like, I'm going to build a $1 billion organization with 2 employees, and you're like, please don't tell your employees that. Or, hey, I believe AI will make it so I could run this company with half the team.
Yeah.
Your entire team heard you say half.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you just introduced massive amount of scarcity and uncertainty into the mix
Right.
without actually setting the stage for. So yeah, for us, I have rules on my own. I'm like, I only work with companies that are growing. And
Okay.
and part of that is the rule of like, well, if your revenue is going up and to the right, it means that when we build more efficiency, you're just not going to hire as much, but your
Mm-hmm.
team's going to grow into it. And so that's like
Right.
one of my rules. I'm not going to go into a company that's like, our revenue growth is flat. Ryan, help us with AI so we can get rid of half these
Uh-huh.
people. I'm like, well,
Oh,
number
I
one,
see.
that doesn't feel warm and fuzzy inside to me. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, you're not going to be able to make a valid, honest, authentic, and transparent case to your team of why they should embrace this.
Mm-hmm.
This what's it called? Lord of the Flies concept doesn't work well. We're like, guys, we're going to introduce AI, and I'm sorry, half of you won't be here when we're done. Now,
Yeah.
that makes a really bad environment for creativity. There's no
Yeah.
safety, there's competition. That's not what you want in creativity. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think on that side, I think the idea of like, it's not just the time. So, like, Google had like free time 1 day a week,
Right.
where
Yeah.
they're like, you can work on anything, you can work on any projects, you had freedom of whatever you want to work on. Um, I haven't seen what they did at Google, but I'm going to assume there was some level of show and tell, which is
Mm-hmm.
what we like to use, like science fair projects. Like, hey, get the company together, show us what you built. This was awesome. Show both the wins and the failures and
Right.
reward both equally. Oh, we failed at this. And so here's what we learned from it. So next time we're trying that. And leaders are the key to that of going, make sure it happened, elevate it out, make sure that you congratulate both sides and treat both the failure and learning equal to the success and evolution so that everybody sees this. And for a lot of times for me, it was, hey, look at what I tried. Here's where I was wrong. Here's how I adapted. Look, I can be wrong too. That's
Mm-hmm.
a real hard one. And leaders in America in the next 5 years are going to have to be willing to say, I tried X, I went first, I was wrong. Here's what I learned from it. It wasn't perfect. This unwillingness to like admit their mistakes and to deflect that it's a market problem is not, it's not solving the problem they think they're solving.
No, I 100% agree with you. And, back to your, makes me think about your point about what can leaders do. And number one, yes, model that and have failure parties and be vulnerable. And that leans into that curiosity we talked about. Like, why didn't that work? And how can we look at this differently? And I think that that comes to time. So in your accountant example, who now has doubled the work because they've increased their efficiency, I think that's the worry with AI, because that was the worry with computers. Like, oh, computers will do all this work for you and you'll have all this free time to be creative. It's like, how do we carve out, and I don't have the answer to this, but how do organizations carve out that time so that if you increase your efficiency by 40, 50%, you're actually now working on some more important things, some more human-centric skills like that curiosity, experimentation, that failure, the connection. How do we carve that out and not consider it useless time when we have AI to help build more efficiency? I think those are big questions.
And yeah, and I think smaller organizations can do better at it because they have more flexibility because they're,
Right.
they're driving a speedboat, not a cruise ship. And so the smaller you are, the easier it is. But it really is like I always lead with, this is a massive, not like I think change might be understating it. This is a complete rethinking of how we run things. Okay. So we start, we say this is a big change. Therefore, big change requires a mission, a vision, a set of core values. And so for me, I go with here's our core values about AI.
Okay.
Number one, we're not looking to replace humans. Number two, we're not looking to remove human to human connection, whether that's employees or employee to customer. And, number three, we start with do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to full send and jump. Number four is like effective, then efficient. We're looking
Mm-hmm.
for it to work as good or better first. We will figure out how to do it at scale later.
Mm-hmm.
But a handful of those core rules, when a leader does that, and like the next one's like shared ROI, where they're like, look, guys, if we do this, here's how this is going to benefit all of us. So it could be like, hey, if we can do our job that used to take us 5 days a week and 3 days a week, I'm going to give you guys 1 day back,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you're going to work less. And we're going to take the extra day we won to apply to that creativity. So let's
Right.
start with figuring out how do we save this amount of time I'll split it with you. Your life became better, and we got more creative time because of that. And that clear vision, all of a sudden the team goes, I get it. Thank you. There is safety here. I know what's going to happen when this works. Therefore, I'm not actually worried of being successful. I think there's a lot of employees who are worried about being successful. Hey, if I run this test right now and it becomes more efficient, how am I going to explain to my boss that I don't need to be here every day anymore?
I think that hits on the idea of like this role ambiguity we talked about earlier, and by providing those clear vision goals and those, the crucible or framework that you're kind of working towards, you're actually reducing that role ambiguity because they know what they're working towards. So that gives them that flexibility to take those small risks because they kind of have a direction where they're going to. I think that's brilliant.
100%. I also think with AI, if we can just leave on this, if this is because I think your message is really, really smart right now. And then you add, hey guys, you better be ready for this because AI is your first potentially, more will come, but your first and probably biggest test we've had in a generation on implementing what you're talking about. When you think the internet changed things and email changed things, I believe that we're underestimating AI from 10 years out. 2 years from now, it won't be as different as we think it will, but 10 years from now, it'll be vastly different. So here's your test, right? Can you lead a creative organization that deals well with this ambiguity? And I think one of the easiest ways to do it is when you take a skill that you want to learn and you apply it not just in a casual environment, but on a casual, unimportant problem, that creativity comes out. So for me, I want to use ChatGPT to create an agent that can talk to my customers. That's pretty risky. If I take ChatGPT and use it to build an agent to talk to my kids, I'm building the same skill set, but the pressure's low. And my creativity expands where I'm like, oh, but it's got to be funny and it's got to be engaging and I need to give it a personality. And look, I'm going to build this agent that will interview females who went to a surf camp and flirt with them about what their experience was at the surf camp in Costa Rica. Like the pressure's low and I seem ridiculous because I apply AI to a lot of those things. But it's an area where when I bring the fear of failure down, I get more creative and those skills then instantly show up the next time I build something at work. Because I'm like, oh, remember how we made this really engaging? What if we try it on this one that's aimed at our customer or an employee?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that's back to that idea of creativity as a boot camp for facing uncertainty. And, whether it's building an AI for kids so you can build an AI agent for work, or whether it is like, I'm going to pick up a paintbrush that I've never done before, and then I'm going to, try this other new thing, and I'm going to go surfing in Costa Rica. It's also building that muscle so that when you come to build an agent, like I agree with you with the skills, but even just that personal mindset of like, I can step into this and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I've done it before. I went surfing, I did this other thing. And so I think that that's really the gold behind using your creativity in whatever way is authentic to you. It doesn't have to be artistic. It's just that building that strength of stepping off the side of the pool and just being like, I guess I'm going to swim.
Yeah, try something new, right? It doesn't matter even what the new thing is.
No.
You should just
because
try
you can't
something
connect
new.
the dots going forward, only backwards, right?
Yeah.
Like who'd
No,
see
I love it.
like as a 22-year-old like learning about Rio virus for cattle, like I can't imagine I was be speaking as a keynote speaker for, HR leaders at SHRM. So you just never really know.
Yeah, 100%. So last, I want to end on this because I'm just curious about it. So you've got an assessment that you guys use on this creativity or whatever, right? Or ambiguity.
Yeah.
Like,
So
yeah, jump
no,
into
go
that.
ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. Let's hear it. I want to hear about this assessment because it's an interesting assessment on how do you grade people's, I don't know about propensity for, but maybe like current adaptation to ambiguity, right?
Yeah, and this is actually through a company called Adaptic Minds out of Australia, who did the research with the University of Queensland on these 9 dimensions. And so historically, tolerance of ambiguity has always been on 2 dimensions: comfort with the unfamiliar and desire for challenging work. So someone who wants to jump into a problem, even though it's not ambiguous, still has a high tolerance of ambiguity. Right. They identified a third workplace specific dimension called managing the uncertainty, which is how do you lead people through it. And so it's a psychometric validated assessment. And what I love about it is it has this thing, I always forget what they call it, but it actually tells you if you're kind of not being truthful, I guess is not really the right word, because sometimes we want to be someone and we perceive ourselves in one way, but we're not actually that way. So it has kind of a self-validation in it. And what it does is it kind of scores you on all these 9 dimensions. So for instance, I am very high in comfort within familiarity and desire for challenging work. I'm a little bit low in the social ambiguity. So like, how are people going to perceive me? You know, maybe I'm a people pleaser. But managing the uncertainty is my opportunity for growth because, and especially the way my mind works is entrepreneurial mindset like you, I go from A to X and I'm like, everyone else is like, what the heck is going on here? So I have an opportunity to learn how to manage other people on my team and how do I help other people understand my vision and help manage through that so that we have processes and we have metrics and assessment ways, but it's flexible so we can change as needed. So it's not my assessment because it's like super hardcore research has gone into this, but I'm I'm a accredited facilitator of this. So, you know, you could take the test and then you might find out that there's opportunities and where you can grow. And most people are not tolerant to ambiguity. Like there's only 10% of people that do have a high tolerance for ambiguity. And that just means they hate it a little bit less. It doesn't mean that they're amazing at it. And like I said, some people, I'm generally high, but I have some opportunities with helping other people move through that. So I love this assessment test. I'm such a nerd. I love that it's not just like, are you a dolphin? You know, like it's robust and validated.
Well, and I guess that's like the first step of change in anything is like recognizing where you're at, right? Hey,
Right.
this is where I'm at today. This is and for the most part, I believe a lot of that lack of being okay with ambiguity is the fact we were trained with, hey, here is when you enter school, it's like, here's the syllabus. This is what you got to learn. Here, like in helping us to be able to see where we were going, you harmed us in making us need to see exactly where we're going every single time. You didn't build that muscle. You actually made it weak.
Right. And made it binary. It's either right or wrong. And I always, especially when I speak sometimes to educators in schools. Where's the M for maybe? There's A, B, C's. What about M? There's no right answer, right? So how do we, learn that muscle of knowing that life is complicated and it's not necessarily right or wrong?
Oh, that's it, 100%. It's not, and that's probably from an organization all the way down. Like the organization set the same stage. There's a right and wrong answer. That's right, you're wrong. Instead of this is the choice we're choosing today because it appears to be the best solution for today, which opens up that tomorrow we may choose a different solution. It's not a this is done. It's a this is for today. We're progress over perfection. It's the minimum effective dose for us to move forward. We're going to reevaluate and continue to change. And even that setting that tone of like every decision we make was the best decision for that point in time based off the info. We are constantly going to be reevaluating and adjusting, creates in the mind of everybody, oh, there's not a right answer. This is just the best answer we came up with. Cool. And we're going to reevaluate. Awesome. So I'm looking for the next evolution, not, well, that's done. Thank goodness we never got to deal with that again.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so true and celebrating those failures and also consciously looking back and knowing because we judge our decisions by the outcomes, not by what we knew at the time. And so I love that frame that you're saying we're going to make the decision that we know now. And then a year from now, look back and say, but that was maybe not the best decision, but that was the best decision, or that was the decision we chose at that moment, because then it makes us scared to do new things because we're like, well, we tried something new and it didn't work. Right.
100%.
So, yeah, no, I think that's that. And those are the hallmarks of a growth mindset that will help to build resilience in all of this change we're facing.
Well, this was amazing, Caroline. People can find you at carolinebrookfield.com, right? They can get your
or
book.
in San Diego on Sunday.
Or San Diego on Sunday. They can get your book. They can hit you up about the assessment. I know I'm going to go take that assessment. So if you're listening to this, you should go hit up Caroline. Let her get you the assessment to take, because I do believe it will open up a lot of potential opportunities. But Caroline, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a great conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. Caroline Brookfield, veterinarian turned ambiguity expert, dropping some serious knowledge on us. Look, here's what I want you to take away from this, and I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone listening. We're living through the biggest change any of us have seen in our careers. Like literally, nobody knows what the world's going to look like in 5 years. Your boss doesn't know, the economists don't know, even the AI companies don't know. And the temptation is to hunker down, do what we've always done, and hope it all works out. But that's not going to cut it anymore. Caroline's research is clear. Creativity is the single factor that influences all 9 dimensions of tolerance for ambiguity. And creativity isn't about being able to draw or paint or whatever. It's about being willing to step into the unknown and be okay with not knowing how it's going to turn out. Whether that's experimenting with ChatGPT on some low-stakes project or taking on a role that's outside your comfort zone, or hell, just trying something new this weekend, you're building that muscle. And for those of you leading teams right now, listen up. Time to be creative, expectation to be creative, and freedom to take risks. That's it. That's the formula that gets you from 20% of your people innovating to 70%. The easiest, hardest things ever, as Caroline put it. If you want to connect with Caroline, check out her book on creativity or take that ambiguity tolerance assessment we talked about. I'll throw her info in the show notes. And yeah, I'm definitely taking that assessment. I'll probably share my results on LinkedIn because, why not? Until then, go create something. Doesn't matter what it is. Just step into that ambiguity and see what happens. Catch you next time on the Future of Work podcast.